financial argument. Follow us on YouTube.
Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we can see, the corporate media, which is the mouthpiece of the deep state, they are reeling from what happened with Comey. They just can't put it together, and it looks like a lot of the government officials, they might be a little worried because Comey was kind of holding everyone's secrets and making sure there were no investigations going on. I'm talking about the real investigations. I'm not talking about this Russian collusion where they can't find anything whatsoever. I'm talking about the Clinton email scandal. I'm talking about Obama spying not just on Trump, on many individuals. I'm talking about the dark secrets inside of government. And we can see that they are very nervous about this, and they're trying to make sense, and they're trying to catch Trump on something. This was all done on purpose. Why? Why was this done on purpose? Why did he want chaos? Well, think about it. He was being investigated by the Democrats, the Republicans, because he's not really part of the Republican Party. I know everyone thinks he is. He really isn't. The deep state is made up of Democrats, Republicans, and those who hide behind the curtain. And he was being investigated because they were trying to find something on him. They were trying to go down legal channels to maybe to have him resign, impeached, whatever they were going to try to do. And the FBI and the intelligence agencies, they can't find anything. Because if they actually had it, they actually had evidence, believe me, it would be all over the place, and they would be asking for Trump to resign right now. And what is happening right now is Trump knew if he removed Comey at this point, even though the investigation was going absolutely nowhere because there is absolutely nothing, the corporate media, which is the mouthpiece of the deep state, would go crazy saying this is unbelievable because he just removed the individual who is leading the investigation against Trump, and this is why he did it. No, this is not why he did it. He did it on purpose to create the chaos that we are seeing. He wants the deep state, the corporate media, busy right now. Because remember, he is working on plans that are not out in front where everyone can see them. They're behind the scenes. They don't even know that he's doing these things. And what we're going to see going forward is things are going to change right now. Now, what we're seeing at this point is that the corporate media is coming out with all different stories of why this is happening. And at every turn, it's just not working for them. Even though they're trying to spin it as best as they possibly can. And they're trying to say that he's doing this to stop the investigation. They even had McCabe up there where they asked him point blank, and I think it was Marco Rubio, asking him, listen, has Trump ever told you to stop the investigation or try to convince you to stop the investigation or impede your work? And he said, no, he never has. They wanted McCabe to come out and say, yes, he came in there, he told us to stop the investigation, and they wanted to put it all together with, that's why Comey is gone right now. Trump should have removed Comey from the beginning. But at this point, and why didn't he do it in the beginning? Well, I think in the beginning, and we could see from his actions, and that's what we've been looking at, he came out like a racehorse. He was riding, signing executive orders, saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And what was happening was the corporate media, and I think it started with the travel ban, where the corporate media, which is the mouthpiece of the deep state, they were blocking him at every turn. And it was getting to be very, very difficult. Then he tried to negotiate with the deep state in a certain way, saying, okay, listen, if I do this, we can do that. And, trying to make it look like that he was part of the deep state while he worked on getting rid of them. And he tried to get rid of the Russian collusion and all the news media on that. And this is why he fired the 59 Tomahawk missiles into an empty airbase, which was operational hours later. This is why he confused everyone with the aircraft carriers and where they were going in North Korea. This is why he brought Xi Jinping down to Mar-a-Lago to set the plan in motion. And we see right now that they are trying to figure all of this out. Now, what's very interesting is they keep asking McCabe, are you going to continue with the investigation? Well, it wasn't just Comey who was doing the investigation. It was the FBI. It wasn't like Comey was sitting there going, I'm in the lead and I'm doing everything. No, there was a team that was doing the investigation, that is still doing the investigation. And right now, McCabe is ahead of that team. But what I find very interesting about all of this is that the corporate media always leaves out certain things, and they don't like to mention it when they're talking about McCabe and he's going to head up the investigation. And what they left out was that he's under investigation himself, because with the Clinton email investigation, he didn't recuse himself from the case because of his family's political ties with the Clintons. Now, before McCabe was promoted to deputy FBI director, his wife Jill, took money from Clinton ally and Virginia governor. And McCabe has occasionally found himself in the center of criticism from across the political spectrum because he didn't recuse himself from the case. So he is under investigation. Now, his wife, Jill McCabe, she received nearly $600,000 in donations from Hillary Clinton, from the Virginia governor, and this was all for her Virginia State Senate campaign. So there was a connection there, and he is under investigation at this point. Now, what's very funny about all of this is that the corporate media really doesn't mention any of this. And it doesn't really matter at this point, because Trump's plan is to keep the chaos going. And while they're worrying about she said that, he said this, and they're taking their little blurbs and their little sound bites from all these different areas, trying to make sense of this, he's doing the real work and the real plan behind the scenes. Now, Larry Klayman notes that FBI has been sitting on millions of pages of surveillance evidence. For months, he says, I've been publicizing the failure of former FBI Director James Comey and his general counsel James Baker, who should now also be let go, to investigate the massive illegal wiretapping and surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans. And actually, Rand Paul is out there saying that, yes, he has evidence that Obama was wiretapping him. Now, what's very interesting is that about 2.5 years ago, whistleblower Dennis Montgomery came forward, and he had this hard drive. And on the hard drive is classified information that proves that our so-called government under the Obama administration has been violating the constitutional rights of not just of President Trump and those around him, but hundreds of millions of innocent American citizens who have neither committed a crime nor been in contact with terrorists at home and abroad. This is the real thing that Comey was hiding. Remember what Trey Gowdy said to him. Why aren't you investigating those individuals that unmasked Flynn? Because isn't that a crime? And who signed off on this? Because if they go down that rabbit hole, they're going to find out things, the dark secrets that they don't want anyone to know. And by removing Comey right now, well, it doesn't really solve the problem, but it gets things started. Now, while the corporate media, the deep state, and everyone else was busy talking about Comey and nitpicking about all these different blurbs and all these different sound bites, who said what said this, and why was he fired? Is the president allowed to fire him? Yes, the president is allowed to fire him. Clinton fired the FBI director when he was president. Trump is firing the FBI director now. He's not the only one on the investigation with Russia. It is the entire FBI, or a portion of the FBI, that is working on this. So for them to say that, he fired him because he was the head and now they're not going to investigate, that's absolutely ridiculous. They're not going to find anything, but this is what they've been going with. Now, during this period of time, Trump signed an executive order forming a commission on voter fraud and elections, an action that Trump has discussed since the beginning. And it'll be spearheaded by Mike Pence and also Kansas Secretary of State Chris Kobach. And they'll be looking into how the elections are run, if there is fraud, and they're going to find out quite a bit if they really do an investigation. Now, remember, after Trump fired Comey, he met with Lavrov in his office. And he didn't invite the corporate media into his office. He actually allowed TASS to be in there, which is a Russian publication. They took pictures. He also met with, very interestingly, Sergei Kislyak, and he is the one that was where Michael Flynn was contacting him and speaking to him, and he's part of the whole Russian collusion thing, and he had him in his office, and I believe this was done on purpose to rub it in the corporate media, to rub it in the deep state, and rub it in their face, to show that, yes, I'm meeting with Russia, and you're not allowed in here to take the pictures, and you will receive them afterwards. He knows the corporate media is part of the deep state. This is why he keeps saying fake news, very fake news. This is why he continually calls them out on it. This is why the corporate media is fighting with him, because it's really the deep state fighting with Trump and his people that are trying to take them down. Now, we know that he met with Kissinger, and a lot of people out there, well, no, Kissinger's with the deep state. He's part of the deep state. Look at what he looks like sitting next to Kissinger. When you saw Hillary Clinton with Kissinger, she had her hand on him. They were smiles. Trump looks miserable because Kissinger, you might think he's his friend. He's not. This is not what it seems. Trump called him into his office to tell him what he and others are doing, that Kissinger and all the people that he associates with, their time is done. If you look at Obama with Kissinger, it's completely different. Yes, do they all go in the same circles? Yes, they're very wealthy people. But here we are, and if everyone expects anyone to go into office and unravel the deep state in about 4 months and say, okay, I just drained the swamp, everything's fine, let's go. You're fooling yourselves. Have you ever worked in a corporation? Have you ever moved up in a corporation and tried to get things done? Especially in a government where the deep state has intertwined themselves so deep, and they will use any method if you don't do what they want, which I mean kill you, remove you, that you need to play a game. You need to be very careful, because one wrong move, you are done. What happened to Kennedy? He issued the silver certificate. He won up against the central bankers. This wasn't the only reason. And he did other things. And guess what? They took him out. This is a slow process. You just can't go in there, and I believe they tried in the beginning by writing all these executive orders, but the deep state, the corporate media, they were fighting him every single step of the way. Now, there's no other alternative but to cut off the funding of the deep state, to get rid of the central bank. Because if they can't use sanctions and they can't do all these things, they are done. Now, they're going to fight this until the very end. We have Trump now going out to visit Erdogan. Now remember, Trump and his team, they are maneuvering in the Middle East. He doesn't want a war in the Middle East. He doesn't want war with North Korea either, even though the corporate media is trying to make everyone believe he wants war. It's the deep state that wants the war. He's trying to calm everything down. He's working on different plans while they're pushing war. And what they're doing right now, their mission is to get rid of the CIA terrorist groups. And I don't mean what Obama did or what Bush did or all the rest of them. They are going after these specific groups. This is why he's teaming up with Russia. Remember, he is actually working with Russia. He's working with North Korea. He's working with China. He's working with the Philippines. He's working with these countries to get rid of the terrorist groups in all of these areas. He's meeting with Erdogan to tell him it's done. Russia has control. Syria has control. He's on board with the de-escalation sites, which is on the west side of Syria. They are going to be moving east now to eradicate the rest of the terrorists. McMaster's is not on his team. Yes, he's there right now, but eventually most likely he will be removed too. There's a lot of individuals that he had to bring on and have them in place, but they are part of the deep state. And you can tell really who they are. Those individuals that kind of contradict him on every turn and every step. Look what happened with Nikki Haley as soon as the bombing started in Syria, and the incident in North Korea. She went off the handle. She went crazy over it. Same thing with McMaster. McMaster's right now is looking for a peaceful solution in Venezuela. What he's really talking about? They're getting prepared and ready to push a regime change. Remember, there are different factions within the government where you have the deep state, you have the central bank, you have the intelligence agencies, which is part of the deep state, and they are not always working with each other. Sometimes they collide. And we've seen this with Obama. Actually, when there was a shooting in like San Bernardino, we had the gun control group, which is a faction where they're trying to get rid of the weapons. Then we had the other group, the intelligence agency, where they wanted to make it into terrorists. But then it didn't make sense with the gun control group, because why wouldn't you protect yourself with the terrorists? And they kind of clashed at that point. And we're seeing that once again. Merkel is saying, listen, Germany's not going to be sending any troops into Afghanistan. We're out. We're not doing it right now. And whatever we have there, she might be recalling them. Because what is happening right now is Trump is making a move into Afghanistan to get rid of the Islamic State. They're going after the CIA operatives, and they're taking down all these individuals that work for the deep state. That's what's in process right now. Trump has invited the South Korea president to the White House. Moon Jae-in has accepted the invitation. A date has not been set yet. The CIA right now, we know they want North Korea because of their opium trade. Remember, before the United States went into Afghanistan, prior to the invasion, the Taliban removed almost all of the poppy field. Opium trade was at its lowest point. And as soon as the United States came in, the poppy fields were growing like crazy. Opium trade was restored, rising from the production of 185 tons under the Taliban to 3,400 tons in 2002. Over a decade later, the amount of opium harvested annually continues to rise. Afghanistan's opium is now used to produce 90% of the world's heroin. They want North Korea because guess what? Their opium trade has been growing and growing and growing. It's competition. So the CIA is going after North Korea. One way or another, they'll start a war. They don't care. It's all part of the plan. The CIA has now opened and launched a new Korea mission center to counter nuclear and ballistic missile threats posed by North Korea. And this is in South Korea. Basically, it's their mission center to get into North Korea and to basically try to get their opium production. Now, if this means they're going to try to invade North Korea, or to try to start a war in North Korea, or to produce a false flag and say it was North Korea, this is what they're going to do. So the biggest threat right now is the deep state, is the intelligence agency, is the central bank. They're the ones who are forcing us into war. Trump on the back end is trying to defuse the whole situation. And as you can see, he's not out there saying Kim Jong-un has passed red lines. He's not talking in absolutes because that's deep state speak. He doesn't speak like that. Yeah, he'll throw out that, yeah, he's a bad guy. He shouldn't be doing that. Assad's mean, because he's trying to keep the illusion alive that, yes, we don't like these individuals. But he's not going to do anything about it. He's playing the game. We see right now that the Syrian rebels, they have captured the Tabqa Dam. It is fully under the moderate rebels right now, and it looks like Russia and Syria, they're going to be making a push into this area. We see also satellite images are showing that the United States has a base on the Syrian-Jordanian border. We know that Eager Lion is going on right now, And this base is right on the border. They have a lot of equipment there, military assets, and many people are saying that this is part of the invasion to go into Syria. Now remember, we have different factions working at this point. We have the Pentagon, we have the intelligence agencies. They're the ones who are controlling these areas because they still want Assad. This is the biggest threat right now. And we're going to have to watch and see how this all plays out, because we can see as we move closer and closer to the summer months, as the economy continually falls apart, the entire system is just going to get more and more chaotic. What Trump is going to do is just going to become more and more chaotic. And what I mean by that is a lot of it is not even going to make a lot of sense because he's playing both sides. But you'll see at each turn, he's going to do everything that he says because he's preparing the entire country for the collapse of the system, the removal of the deep state, and everything needs to be put in place for the